All right, everybody, welcome in. We're going to do some puzzles today. The idea here is that we are going to be training our brain to look for tactics, look for things that give us an advantage or ways that our opponents maybe missed something. So a lot of this is great for the mid game when there's a lot of stuff happening on board and you haven't quite transitioned to an end game yet. There's still complications out there. And finding these advantages is how we move ourselves into a winning position. So let's take a look at this one. This is random, completely random, so I haven't done this one yet. There's a lot of pieces on the board, so let's go through the process. The first thing is we are white. Material on the board is a queen and a rook. Queen and two rooks. We have 3 pieces, they have 2 pieces. Okay, so we have an extra bishop for a rook. Right, yeah. Everything else lines up. That. Knight. Bishop. Yep. So we are down an exchange. I immediately see an alignment issue I would love to take advantage of, but there's really nothing I can do until I move this pawn out of the way. And this pawn can't move until that pawn moves. That's not going to happen. Sacrifice as second exchange. Does that help us in any way? No. Looking at knight forks. Knight forks are always a great tactical shot to see if there's a way that, okay, there's a fork here. But again, we've got some pawns that are in the way. Nothing really I can do about those pawns right now. Okay. I'm seeing something now. I don't know if this is correct or not, but here's an option. Queen is somewhat trapped. So if a rook comes up and parks itself here, does that do anything? No, because my opponent doesn't have to capture. If they do capture, that'd be a good thing. They don't have to capture. In fact, they could just move the knight and attack my bishop, so that's probably not a good tactic either. Another toughie. Straight up capture. Doesn't really do anything. And then if I capture here, my opponent could even capture back with the queen, and thus giving them a little bit more escape routes to run to. Okay, I have something now. Okay, now I have something. So if I move my knight, it attacks the queen. Queen has to move. Queen can't go here. And the queen can't go here or here. Queen is trapped. My opponent takes the knight, and my queen captures their queen. Feeling pretty good about that right now. I'm looking at alternatives because no, if this happens, then my opponent grabs the knight. But actually, the knight here to the d5 square is also intriguing because if my opponent grabs the pawn here, I can push my pawn, thus opening up this diagonal. We actually have two good strategies right now. A simple question is, which way do we go? Is there any difference between this move order? Of course there's a difference. I just can't figure it out right now. I think if I go knight to d5, if captures, then captures. d5, if captures, and push past. But then the knight here, and this becomes a little foggy because now capture is met with capture. Okay, so let's stick with this plan. Yes. And we win ourselves a queen in the process. We're going to give up a piece. Yeah, we're going to give up a piece for it. Opponent has two pieces available to capture. They'll pick one, and we'll move the other. So, hey, we got it. So, yeah, so that took good 5 minutes plus to try to figure that out. But that's the process. That's what we want to do. We want to be going through these. And we want to try to find these kind of tactics so that we can see it in the future. So this particular game, it looks like it's much closer to an end game, right? So the queens are off the board. The only material left on the board is a rook and a piece, a rook and a piece, and then a smattering of pawns. And it looks like an equal amount of pawns. This is an equal material. Now we are black. Few things we've got going for us right now. First thing I'm doing is I'm looking for knight forks. I don't see any immediate, actually I do see an immediate knight fork. Right, knight to here works both the rook and the bishop. Right. Not a full trade though, because my opponent could simply move this rook out of the way. And if I capture, no, because he captures back with the rook, and then I pick up a full rook. So I would have two attackers, and he would only have one defender. So this is looking pretty good right now. So now I've picked my candidate move. This is my good move. When you find a good move, look for a better one. So I'm going to take a quick moment, and I'm going to scan the board for a better move. I'm looking for a checkmating pattern. Right, the knight is covering this square and this square. The rook slides over, puts the king in check. King cannot squirt out that way. So rook comes over. That, and that are all blocked off. That would be blocked off. The king could squirt out this way. So, what's better, picking up a free piece? Checkmate. Let's just look to see if we have a checkmating pattern. So if my rook goes to here, king would be forced to go here. No, I don't have any follow-up. I follow up because this square is covered by the rook. So, all right, I'm going to go back to my first move. That's not correct. Go to the second move. And now the fork. Okay, so interesting. Why? 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 Why can't I go for the fork straight away? Ah, because my rook is undefended. Because if I were to grab here, my opponent would simply grab here, and I'm actually down the exchange. So, and why is that important after this? Oh, because now the rook. Why not here now? Oh, because now the rook is not blocked by the knight. Still pick up a piece at the end of that sequence. And even if my opponent does, we can head over here, pick up these guys. Okay, all right. So I missed that one, right? That's what happens, you know. Even after looking at it, I missed a valuable piece of information. I missed that the rook here pins the knight, whereas we saw this move as our second best move, but realistically, it has nothing to do with the check. It's just moving the rook to the other side of the knight. So that if we see this, the rook is now also part of the game. So okay, that was a valuable lesson. That's something I'm going to try to remember to look out for. Now, I can't remember them all, but we can try for it. Okay, here we are. We're like a late mid-game. The queens are still on the board. Probably going to come off the board eventually. We are white. White has 2 rooks and a queen. Black has a rook, a queen, and the bishop pair. So we have traded one of our rooks, or we've traded away 2 of their pieces for one of our rooks. So in this case, black is actually ahead a little bit. Having a bishop pair at the end of a game, especially when the board is wide open like this, that bishop pair becomes really powerful. We are white. Don't have this check. Oh, we've got it. We've got a very easy check, and then we pick up a bishop here. No, not really, because check. The king's own. No, king can't come down this way. Check. Okay, okay, this is bigger than I thought. Hang on a second. Those are covered. These are covered by the pawn. These are covered by the rook. If the queen moves, then the queen is covering these as well, and these. That would be checkmate. The rook has to. I mean, the bishop has to move up to block. Then our queen can just take, defended by the rook, and it's still checkmate. Boom. That's how you do it. So that was a successful puzzle. But more importantly, we noticed all the things on the board. We were able to spot the things. So it wasn't that we successfully got the puzzle correct. That's the great thing. We successfully spotted the threats and we spotted the responses to it. That's what's good about it. All right, we got time for one more. Let's try one more. All right, another middle of the road, middle game. Ooh, white. We are white and we are down. So queen and a queen, 2 rooks for a bishop. So black is way ahead at this point in time. This is not going to be easy. We cannot simply offer trades, because offering trades is going to lose us the game. We have to find ways to use our pieces and get 2 for 1 somewhere. Try to even the score. One thing we can note real quickly is pawn is covering that escape square. The bishop is covering that escape square. So the king's only flight is behind himself. There was a way that we could get up the board, you know, to the other side of the table, put the king in check from the back. Fun. There's not even a sacrifice here, because if we put the king in check this way, and he were to grab, doesn't really do anything because our queen can't get over here anywhere. We are white. There was really not a lot here, but there obviously is something here. So if we're looking at this over the board, you may go, ah, there's nothing here, and throw in the towel, resign the game. You're down too much, resign, move on with life. But since it's a tactic puzzle, we know there's something here. So never give in, never surrender. Man, this one is tight. There's not really, I mean, there's really not any good moves at all. Even if I were to push a pawn to be able to get my rook into, I mean, my bishop into place to try to checkmate the opponent this way, because notice the queen here would cut off that square. That square's cut off by the pawn. So even opening up this bishop to get the bishop in line here, my opponent still has 2 attackers for my 1 defender. If I could somehow trade my bishop for my opponent's queen, that gets us closer in material, but 2 rooks versus a queen is still a challenge for both sides. Neither side is completely out of it right then. So there's something else. So it's not just trading away the bishop for the queen. Not just trading away a queen for 1 rook, because that still leaves a queen and a rook. Can't. Got to be something here. Now, if I were to queen here, queen trade, that puts the pawn here. My opponent's next move, he's in time to stop the queening pawn, so it doesn't matter. Notice to stop a queening pawn, you take the pawn and draw a box. Right? So if the pawn is sitting here, and I can draw a box, perfect square to where it has to queen, as long as the king can get into that square, then the king can get there in time. So white moves a pawn here. There's the box. King's next move can go either here or here, and he's in the box. So the king can get to that queening square in time. Move on. Y'all, I do not see this one at all. At all. I just do not see a good move. Pushing a pawn is too slow, because even though I can push a pawn here, 1, 2 turns, and it's just not. All right, so I don't know. My 2 candidate moves are to push this pawn to start breaking up this pawn chain, but I don't like it because push a pawn, capture. I've got no follow-up, right? Capture, push a pawn, capture. Either I capture back with the queen and attacking this pawn, but then that pawn pushes past and is defended by the rooks. Nothing there. This sacrifice, that sacrifice doesn't feel good because there's nothing to follow up with. Except this. Hang on a tick. Hang on a tick. Go back. King is in check. The king has a couple likely moves. Either these two legal moves or capture back. And if the king were to go back on either one of those with the bishop here, then the queen up is checkmate. So the king's only valid move is to capture. Now this comes with check. So if the queen is sitting here, the king is sitting here with check. King is going to have to push down. And then what? And then what? So I can ostensibly force the king to be onto one of these two squares. The king comes to h5. I can push g4 with check. That forces the king to be either here or here, and then the queen can come down. If the king moves to h4 and these pawns are in this position, king is here on h4, then my queen hanging out can deliver checkmate. Because the king can't move this way because my king is blocking it. And if the king moves to g5, my pawns are looking like this. Then what? Check. Ugh, this is where I can't visualize. So king takes, and again the queen come down as checkmate. Check. King has to come here, and now we're in this position, and checkmate. I think that's it. So I think this sacrifice is the solution. Well, I'll be damned. All right, and what did we say from here? We didn't. We forgot to analyze this one. All right, the king is cut off here and here. King is cut off here and here. Not time for the queen yet. Got to be one of these pawns. I'm going to go with the forcing line. I don't know. Okay. This is nothing still. This comes with check. So that's covered. Pawn that's covered. That's covered. Now, checkmate. Wow. Wow. What a crazy position that was. Got it right. It took a while, but we got it right. Alrighty, so that's... So I was guessing on a couple of these here at the end, right? But I did decide to go with the most forcing line possible. Force my opponent Force my opponent, because a forcing line means that your opponent has a very limited number of responses, and we can try to work through those. And indeed we did. And so sacrificing this bishop started this chain reaction that, yeah, I mean, with best moves on both sides of the board, it's a checkmate in 6. Wow. And then this is just an extra move that's, wow. All right, well, we got it. We did have to guess a little bit on it, but we picked the forcing moves. We predicted a lot of it. We didn't get it exactly right, but we did better than we have in the past. And that's all we can do. We get better at these things. We get better at these things, and we start to see them. And then eventually you'll see that over the board, and you'll say, okay, maybe this isn't the exact same scenario, but I do remember seeing something like this pop up. And so your brain goes, well, analyze it. You know, look at these, you know, would this work in this situation? You know, we had a puzzle that kind of looked like this. Will this work too? And, you know, these tactics, this is what we train for. We are practicing to get better. And that's all we can do is get a little better every time and then apply this where possible. All right, guys, this is a fun one. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll talk to you later. Bye.